Hi guys, and thanks for joining me today. If you're new here, I'm Marilyn, and if you're returning, thanks so much for coming back. Now, I've been pretty deep in my embroidery era for going on a year now, but I remember exactly how I felt before I really got into it. I had bought a machine, I was afraid of it, I was intimidated by it, and I didn't understand it. Well, after some gentle nudging from some of my friends, I decided to embrace it. So today's video are for those of you that are afraid of your machines. Maybe you haven't even tried to use them yet. Maybe you have Embrilliance and you haven't opened it yet. This is a very basic beginner level tutorial. Here's what I'll use in today's video. First of all, here's what I'm going to embroider on. So I have these burp rags. I think these are very nice quality. I got them at Marshall's and it came with 3 colors. We have this dusty pink, we have yellow, and then this kind of dusty bluish green. This is the one I'll embroider on today. For my stabilizer, I have this no-show mesh stabilizer, and then I have this water-soluble topper. Now it says this can also be used as a backing. So I'm going to try something different today. I'm going to use the no-show mesh on the back with a layer of this, and then another layer of this on top to keep the stitches from going into the fabric. I have some position stickers, and then I'm going to use my 5.5-inch mighty hoop for this project. I also have some scissors. For my embroidery machine today, I'm going to use a SmartStitch 12 needle machine. I have kind of an olive green thread on it that I'm going to use. And then to make my design, and it's going to be a very simple design, I'm going to use Embroidery software and a BX font that I got off of Etsy. I'll show you how easy it is to take a new BX font into Embroidery software. I have Etsy pulled up, so let's go ahead and go to My Purchases. I'm going to click on my icon and then go right down to Purchases. Now, I bought this font a long time ago. You can see I bought it in December and I haven't even downloaded it yet. So I'm going to go right over here to download. And then down here you have the file types. Now with Embrilliance, one of the beautiful things is you can install what's called BX fonts, and then they're typable fonts. So you're not bringing in each and every letter from a file, you're just using your keyboard and typing. So here's the BX font. I'll click on download. And then to allow it, I have to click on allow. Now if I click right up here on my Mac, I can see my most recent downloads. Here it is. So let's go ahead and double click on that. And then here's the various sizes of this font. If you want to see what it looks like, you could look at this. This is just a sample. But all I want to do is I want to put these into my Embrilliance software. Here's how easy that is. Let me go ahead and open up Embrilliance software, or go ahead and get it back on my screen. And then let's click back on this. All you have to do is you select those various sizes of fonts and you drag them onto the screen of Embrilliance. And you can see right here they've been installed. And I don't have to close Embrilliance. I don't have to close down my computer. They're ready to use. Now with this design, all I'm going to type out is Levi. This is going to be a super simple design. I'm going to use a BX font, so I go right up here to this A. We'll click on it, and then I have this little panel down here where I can actually type what I want and select my font. So first of all, let's go find Henry. Here it is right here, Stitchtopia Henry, and they're organized by size, kind of. Here's your 1/2 inch, here's your 1.5 inch, here's your 1 inch, your 2.5 inch, your 2 inch, and your 3 inch. So let's go ahead and do, let's see, let's try 1.5 inch, and then I'm going to go right here to where it says text, and I'm going to type Levi. And that's pretty cute. Let's see what it would look like if I did all caps. All right, let's go ahead and get back on this. And I have another font that I want to try. Here it is right here. It's called Baby Chicks. And I like the fact that this one, I don't have to choose between 1 inch or 1.5 inch. I can go for 1.25. So let's select it and see what that looks like. Okay, that looks cute. Let's go ahead and try it with capital and small letters. And that's what I'm going to use. I love that. Now notice how all these letters are kind of smushed together. Also notice these green squares. So if I click on this green square with the E, and I use this top arrow, I'm going to move it to the right, and everything else gets spread out to the right as well. Now let me undo that so I can show you what happens if you click on the bottom arrow. So let's click on E. If we use this bottom arrow, everything gets moved over, but it doesn't get spread out. And then let's say all I wanted to do was move the I. I'd click on the I, and all I would do is click on this middle green box and not one of the arrows. But we're going to go ahead and click on the E, and we'll use this up arrow to spread everything out uniformly. So let me click off of it, back on it, and we can see it's at 2 3/8 by 1 1/4. I really want that to be a little wider. So let's change the size of it. Let's go ahead and do the 1.5 inch. And then once again, we'll click on the E, use this up arrow, and we'll spread it out. Now that's almost 3 inches. I think that's fine. It's barely over 1.5 inches tall by almost 3 inches. I think that'll look perfect. Now with it selected, I want to go up to Utility, and I'll say Center in Hoop. I always like my designs to be in the center of the hoop, so it's very predictable when I get to my machine where they'll be. Now I'm going to save this, so I'll go right up here to File, Save As. I want to save a stitch file. That's what I put on my machine, and a working file. The working file just lets me come right back in here and make changes. And then my machine uses DST files, but there's a whole lot of other types of files that you can save it as. And then I'm just going to save this as EMB for embroidery and Levi. And I'll save it to my desktop. Now that I have the design ready, I'll go ahead and move it to the machine, and we'll get our item hooped up. This is a small hooping station by HoopMaster, and I'm using my 5.5 inch Mighty Hoop. You open these clamps to put your stabilizer on. So remember, I'm trying out using a combination of no-show mesh and water soluble. So let's go ahead and lay that down, and I want to make sure that I have the entire bottom half of the hoop covered by both the no-show mesh and the water soluble. So let me adjust that just a little bit. Then I'll close these magnetic clamps. And we'll add the burp rag. Now I want to make sure that this tag is out of the way so it doesn't get stitched. And then I want to make sure that the burp rag is nice and smooth. I also need to make sure that it's centered. Then this is the top half of the hoop, and there's these metal things that fit down into some grooves on the hooping station. So you just press down on these arms and your item is hooped. And this looks good. Here's how it looks from the top, and here's how it looks from the bottom. This hooped up really nicely, and you can see from the back that it's nice and smooth. So this is the last design that I made, so I need to click this blue button so I can change my design. Then I'll click on the design management icon, and then I need to click on the picture of the thumb drive to get my design off of my thumb drive. Here's my design, so I'll select it and click the green button. Now on this screen, I'm just assigning a number to it. Then I click this Back to Designs arrow, and here's the design now saved to my machine. So now I click this green button so that the machine knows this is what I want to stitch out now. This orientation is correct, so I click the green icon to continue. Now I click on the frame icon so that I can choose my hoop. I'm going to use this 5.5 inch hoop. I'll click the check mark, and the hoop will move on my machine so that the design will be in the center. Now let's go back to the main screen. From here, I can select my colors. I'm going to use green thread, and that green thread is on needle 6. So let's put the hoop on, and I'll move my hoop back a little so the design's closer to the bottom of the burp rag. Now my laser beam isn't pointed quite to the right position, so I'm just watching under needle 2, and that's what shows me where the design center will be. So I'm going to go ahead and fix this laser beam so that it's pointing where it should be. I need to remove this position or target sticker, and then I'll put my water-soluble topper on and frame the design to make sure it's where I want it. That looks good, so I'll change the status of the design from the prep status to embroidery status and press start. Now since I didn't tape my water-soluble topper down, I'm using this chopstick to hold it in place. I do not want to stick my fingers anywhere near the needle, and so I just use these chopsticks that you get when you order Chinese takeout. I love using these. I have a lot of them, and so I didn't have to buy any new tools for this. Now toward the end of the stitch out, I stopped the machine to see if I was going to have enough topper for the eye or if I would need to add more. It was plenty, so I started the machine back up. Now let's take this off the machine and check it out. It looks really nice. I think it looks great. Now with water-soluble stabilizer, most of the time you can peel most of it off, and then if you have some left, you can get a damp rag and kind of wipe it, or you can put it underwater. But I don't like to get mine submerged underwater. So that's what it looks like so far. I think that turned out really nice. All right, let's go ahead and unhoop this. Stitching from the back looks excellent. There was no thread breaks, no false thread breaks. This stitched out nice and smoothly. Now let me trim a little bit of this away. And then I'll go ahead and rip this away just like I did on the front. All right, let me check it out. It looks like it all came off. Let me look at the front. And that looks like it all came off there. So now all I need to do is cut around this no-show mesh. And then if I want to, I can put some Tender Touch or something like that on this. This isn't going to be touching baby's skin, so I don't think I need to. So after cleaning it up, here's what it looks like. I think that looks great, and I think that Levi's parents are going to love this. If you're interested in more videos about embroidery or embrilliance, check out the other content on my channel. If you're interested in a SmartStitch, I'll have those linked below. So thanks again for joining me. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and until my next video, bye-bye.